Hello, everyone. This is Kerwin, and welcome to another episode of What's Happening in Travel with Kushro and Kerwin. And my name is Kerwin. Kushro is not here today. Uh, Today, what I wanted to talk about, two things, pretty much. Well, before I start, behind me is a Norman. It's a Briton Norman Islander in Montserrat. I went to Montserrat, I think it was last year. And so I was able to take this Norman Islander from Antigua to uh, Montserrat. And many people don't even know Montserrat exists, or if they know it exists, the only thing they can think about is that there was a volcano, Soufriere, I think is the name of it, and it erupted a few years ago, I think many years ago, and it basically devastated Plymouth, which was the capital of Montserrat, and people had to be evacuated. And the Montserrat is still a British overseas territory, so many of them went to the UK and also neighboring islands. And but now they've come back, and they're living instead. The island is kind of a pear shape, and they're living. This happened in the southern part of the island, and now they're living in the northern part of the island, which is where the new airport is. They built a lot of new structures, but it's someplace that people don't really go. Most people will go to Antigua, but it's actually a very, very nice island. So if you ever get a chance, it's I flew fly Montserrat, and the cool thing was I had two Trinidadian pilots, captains, female captains on the flight in both directions, and it was really a great flight, by the ladies. And when you take off, you kind of make I guess from where we were, we made a left turn, and we're heading north, and you get a really great view of the island. I was hoping that we would have seen maybe go right so we could see the devastation still from the volcano, because basically it wiped out the entire town. But we couldn't. I guess next time I go, I'll see if I can get a ride or something, flight to do that. Probably a little pricey, but I think it can be worth it to do that. So if you ever go into the Caribbean, try Montserrat. Fly Montserrat is the name of the airline that will fly you from Antigua across, and it flights maybe 40 minutes, if that much. I don't think it was that long. And then you get over there. I stayed at I think it was it wasn't an Airbnb, but the place was set up like an Airbnb. It was actually quite nice. And I had a great view, a great sunset view. And I was staying near a place called Lime Kiln Bay, so I could see that from where I was. And it was great because there's like mangoes all around. Just a very, really nice property. And the owner, lived on at the front, and this property sat in the back. And there's like two floors, so it's very nice. So if you get a chance, head over to Montserrat. Being from the Caribbean, most people, they always go to the bigger islands. So I always try to promote the smaller islands. So that's where we are with that. The next thing I wanted to talk about is I give a sigh because so there are we're going to talk about flight types. We're going to talk about the difference between a non-stop flight and a direct flight. This is something you see every time, and it boggles my mind when the airlines themselves say it incorrectly. It's okay and not okay for regular people to say it, but when airlines say it, it's like, come on, you should know better than this, right? So what is a non-stop flight? Okay, so by definition, The word nonstop means I don't make a stop. So, for example, if we're going to Montserrat, we would fly from Antigua to Montserrat without making a stop. That is a non-stop flight. Now, let's say we were flying from the United Kingdom to Antigua, and then from Antigua to Providenciales. There's actually a flight that British Airways flies that does that exact route. That would be a direct flight, because it's one flight number, you're making at least one stop, and without changing planes, right? So the reason why you have direct flights is for marketing purposes. So for example, let's say there was a nonstop flight from London to Providenciales and by another airline, say Virgin Atlantic, for example. And British Airways does the London to Antigua to Providenciales portion. They want to appear that they have a nonstop flight from London to Providenciales. So whenever it shows up in the listings, their flight would actually show right behind the nonstop, because that flight is longer, and typically it's sorted by route times. So it's really for marketing purposes why the airlines do it. For example, not anymore, but United used to do flights that go from Houston to New York to Rome or to Paris. I think it was flight 10 was the Paris flight at the time. And so Air France also has a flight from Houston to Paris. So when you look at the listing, you'll see Air France, and then you'll also see United, but they have to tell you that the aircraft makes a change. In the case of United, the aircraft makes a change, and but that's it. The aircraft changes in, but there is no flight number change. So flight 10 goes all the way through, say Houston to New York. I think at the time it might have been like a 757 or a 737. And then when it gets to New York, it was a DC-10. Yeah, this is back in the days of the DC-10, until it became a 777, right? But the flight number remained the same. So I realize I haven't told you the definition of a direct flight yet. I've just given you examples. So for a direct flight, it makes at least one stop, right? So you're going from A to C. I'm going to say A to C, and you make a stop in B. You may or may not change airplanes, and but the flight number will be the same. The flight number will not change, and that's what makes it a direct flight. When you speak of this, people always get so confused, and then it's the media, right? The media always says the wrong thing, and you see the airlines. Oh, I have a new direct flight from New York to, I think they just did one, New York to where is the place? Faroe Islands. There's a new service that's going to start from Faroe Islands to Newburgh. It's going to be in the summer. That is actually a good flight if you ever get a chance to do that. I think I may try to do that flight again, because I really want to go back to the Faroe Islands. But that's the definition between a nonstop flight and a direct flight. Now, there are some direct flights that are super awesome in the industry. So Alaska has something called the Milk Run. And the Milk Run, it used to make a 5 stops or something like that. But it goes from Alaska, Anchorage, down to Seattle, and it stops in like Ketchikan. I forget the name of the other stop, but it makes a few stops on the way down. And it's one flight number. I think it's AS65, and it stops in all the places as you go down. The other flight that's out there that's very similar is there's so many of them. There is the one in Micronesia. That's the one that does the 5-stopper. It starts in Honolulu and ends up in Guam. And it used to stop in Johnston Island, but it no longer does in Johnston Island. That's a military installation, and it doesn't stop there anymore, but it used to. I remember when I first stopped there, they tell you that you have to close all your windows, and you can't take any photos when you land in Johnston Island. So windows down and people get off the plane, and then people get on the plane, and then we go. Then you can open the windows after we leave, but not while you're there. But they don't do Johnson Island anymore. But they do Ponape, Cazare, Truck, the what's it? I can't remember the name of the island, but there's 5 stops that they make. It takes you a whole day. I think when I did it, it was 14 hours and like 58 minutes to go. It is totally worth it. You get to get off at the islands and just like quote unquote stretch your legs. Except the Marshall Islands, you can't get off at that one because it's a military base again. Although we did get off once because we met the president of the Marshall Islands was on the flight. It was back in the days of the 727. And there was 3 of us. And so we had just gotten up to stretch our legs. It's a long flight. This is one of the longer segments. And so we get up and we come back and there's this guy sitting in our seats. And so we were like, excuse me, sir, you're sitting in our seats. And everyone around us was just like, their mouth dropped in awe. And we were kind of like, what's going on? So somebody said, do you know who this is? And we were like, no. And they were like, he's the president of the Marshall Islands. And we were like, oops. So, but we were very respectful to him. And so we started talking, and we sat down, and he sat down, and we were just chit-chatting the whole flight. And he was actually drinking too. So we he eventually left and went back to his seat. He was sitting in first class, of course. And so he went back to his seat. And then people are like, oh my God, I can't believe you guys are talking to the president. I'm like, he's just a normal person like everybody else. And so he said, you must come see my island. And we were like, yes. So we land in the Marshall Islands, and we're getting up and we're getting off. And this is one of the islands that you can't get off because it's a military base. And so what happened is that he gets off, and then another boat comes and picks him up and takes him to one of the islands. But this particular island, only military personnel can get off there. Or if you live in the Marshall Islands, you kind of like, you come through and then you can take the flight and leave. But otherwise you can't. So we head to the front of the plane. And the flight attendants are like, no, where you going? You can't get off. And we're like, oh, okay. We're like, well, but the president said we can. And they looked at us laughing. So then we were back to our seats, and then we heard the flight attendant paged us to come back to the front of the plane. And she's like, oh, yeah, you guys are telling the truth. I'm like, yeah, why would we lie? And so we get off a plane. I know I'm digressing, but it's a really good story. So we get off the plane, and the guy, we meet the guy who's in charge of the base, and his name is on the base. And we're like, whoa. So then we get up, and he's like, why are you guys here? And he's like, well, the president said we can go. And he looked at the president nodded and said, it's fine. So we get off, and we're staying close, and we're like so excited because we have our passports with us because we can get a stamp. So now we get off, as myself and 2 other colleagues. And so we get through the security part, and the president and his entourage goes off to the right, and we're off to the left. And so we're going through this security thing, and they were like, how come you guys got off the plane? Because of course nobody communicated anything. And they were like, well, you need to get back on the plane. And we're like, yeah, but we wanted to get a stamp. They're like, you can't do that. And we're like, well, the president just said we could get off. And they're like, no, he didn't. So then he kind of peeked his head and they said, yeah, it's okay. These guys are fine. And so we get off the plane, we get through immigration, we get our stamp. And, this was back in the days, this is 727, right? So this was back in the days, there was no Instagram and all that kind of stuff. I think I had a camera and I don't even think I took photos because I think on this island you can't. So I don't think I have any photos or anything. I don't think I have the passport stamp that said we were there. So then we got out, we kind of hung out for a little bit, and then they started to board. Of course, there was trouble again because they're like, how did you get off the plane? And so we had to explain to them again what happened. So we got our stamp, and then we got back on the plane. But that was kind of a really, really great story that I thought I would share with you guys. So, sometimes, you go on these trips and you just go with the flow. And this was one of those. And now on this flight, though, if you're a non-rev and you're taking this flight, oftentimes out of Chuk, the flight is weight restricted. And sometimes divers go to Chuk and they get the bends. And so whenever they get the bends, they have to put the stretcher in the airplane. When they put a stretcher in the airplane, I think you lose some seats. So just bear that in mind that sometimes you may get stuck in Chuk. And actually going the other way, when you leave Guam to get to Chuk, sometimes a flight is full between Guam and Chuk because of the diving in Guam and Chuk. And so you can't, if any of the legs, they can't get you on, they usually don't board you. But this was back in the day. And I took it again with the 737-800, not the same as the 727, but still fun. And I actually want to take it again. And this time I want to spend some more time in the different islands, but hopefully that will happen at some point. So that's one of the best direct flights around, because it makes like 5 stops, same flight number. And the culture is so different as you go to the different islands. The other one is called the French Connection. And the French Connection is the one that starts in Miami run by Air France. I don't know if that flight is still operating. It probably still is. But so Air France had these overseas territories, or some of them are not overseas territories, they're their own countries, but they have French influence. So they go to Haiti. It's the first stop, Miami to Haiti. And then there's Guadeloupe. This might not be the right order. Martinique. And the last one is French Guiana. So it's an awesome flight. And we took it one day. And of course, I have a story again, right? So actually, myself and Krisho took it. So we're heading south on this flight. And our goal was to fly down to French Guiana and then go from French Guiana to Orly, because since they're French overseas territory, it's a domestic flight. And so it goes back to Orly as a domestic flight. So when you get to Paris, you wouldn't go through immigration because you already went to immigration when you entered whichever country that you did. And so what you'll see in the Caribbean is Air France has these flights there. I think they actually have a Haiti one. They used to, I don't know if they still do. They have a Guadeloupe, they have a Martinique, and they have a French Guiana flight. And the interesting thing about this flight is that Air Caribbean also goes to some of these places, and they have like nice A350s that they fly now that go. But back then, I think it was like the 747s, and Corsair used to fly down. So it was great to go and see these airplanes. And Martinique was the very first place I've ever visited. And so it was great to go back and see. We didn't stay very long. I think we just got out and I took some photos, which were really awful photos. So I need to go back, because Martinique has a special place in my heart because it's the first place I ever visited as a traveler. And Fort-de-France. I was a French exchange student. So yes, I speak un petit peu français, not too much. But if I get immersed in the French language again, I'll certainly pick it up because the vocabulary is still there. So so while we were in French Guiana, everything went perfect. So we got to French Guiana, and then once we're in French Guiana, we find out that they're having protest because the price of fuel, everything is controlled by France, and the price of fuel was going up. And they were like, well, how come the price of fuel is more expensive in French Guiana than it is in France? So there was a protest. A part of the protest was blocking the road from French Guiana, from the airport in Cayenne, I think it is, from the airport into the city. So when we get there, we didn't know this. And when we get there, because we asked, is the flight going to be okay? And they're like, yeah, it's going to be fine to do Cayenne to France, to Paris, Orly. So we get there, and the lady's like, oh no, we don't think you're going to be able to get on the flight tonight. And then she goes, as a matter of fact, you won't be able to get on the flight tonight. And we're like, oh, what happened? She goes, well, because of the protest, what they've done is they've flown in the an extra crew, flight attendant crew on the inbound. And what they're actually going to do is they were gonna and it's weight restricted and all kinds of stuff was going on, and so they had to make some shifts. So they were not taking any passengers, any well, they were taking the passenger, but they weren't taking any non-res. They had an embargo. They're like, great. Wish we had known this before, but then I wouldn't have had this story, right? So then we talked to the immigration and they said, well, we need to get back to Guadeloupe because I think Guadeloupe is the first stop. And the interesting thing, so because they took the crew that came from Paris, they sent them to Guadeloupe, or they're going to send them to Guadeloupe on the one flight that they have a day, because I think it was the A320, and they probably still have it. I need to look that up. And so they had the A320s come down, and it's going to go back, and we need 2 seats. And so now they have an extra crew. It's like 14 people in this Airbus that came back through, including the flight crew. So we really don't have any space on this flight now. And so, but what they did, I'm jumping ahead. So the lady said, look, you have to enter the country because you can't stay in transit because you have no flight that's going back, and you don't have a reservation or any tickets on the one that's going through. So we're like, great. I think what we had done is we had kind of anticipated something like that. So I think we actually had, no, we didn't have a backup to go back. But what we did, we said, well, can you take the hourly ticket that we have and use that for the, which that ticket is more because it was a Z, but we said, can you just use that for the ticket to go back since we don't have another ticket to go from Cayenne to Guadeloupe. And the agents were good. They said, yeah, because it's more money, right? So it doesn't matter. And there were all space available tickets. So it doesn't really matter. As long as if you pay more, we're losing, but we're fine because we're actually getting back to somewhere. So okay, so here's the thing about Cayenne, French Guiana. You need is it malaria shot? I think it's a malaria shot. Or yellow fever. I think it's malaria. We didn't have one. We didn't have one because we were just going to transit. We're never going to get outside the airport. So we never needed one. And if we were going in, they wouldn't have let us on the flight if we didn't have one. So the agent so we said to the immigration person, said, well, we can't enter the country because we don't have the right shots. And she's like, you'll be fine. And she let us through. So we go in and we're like, oh, this is cool. We're in Cayenne at the airport, but we can't go into the city because the roads are blocked. And so we went outside, and I tell you, the mosquitoes were huge. We were just doing this. I'm brushing my hands the whole time, my arms the whole time, Trisha and I. And the mosquitoes are too much, and we ran back inside the airport because it was just too bad. And we didn't have any protection. So, luckily we didn't get sick or anything. So that was good. But then we get to the counter now. And what we have to do, we have to wait. And we have to wait late for this flight to come back in, not knowing if we're going to get a seat or not. And then it even got better. The flight crew had to be flown in by helicopter. They couldn't get the flight attendants to do that, but the flight crew had to fly in by helicopter into the airport so they could fly the plane to Orly. It was crazy. So long story short, eventually we did manage to squeeze onto that flight. I think there might have been one open seat or extra open seat after we got on. The entire crew was on that came in on the A340 that came in. That flight left, and then we got to Guadeloupe. So of course we get to Guadeloupe. It's like after midnight. We have nowhere to stay because we didn't we had nothing. Called up a place from the airport. We're like, where you guys suggest? And we found a place, a really nice place. And the guy gave us a rate. And so we get there, and the guy is like, there's two of you. I said, yes. We told you there's two of you, and that we wanted to get one room with two beds. And the guy's like, oh no, the rate is higher now. Because what he had done, he had reserved one room with one bed at a special rate. Says, I know you have to pay more. So like, look, dude, it doesn't matter. We'll pay whatever it is. Of course, she was cheating us, right? But it's after midnight. We're in a foreign country. You just play your cards. And so we're like, okay, fine. So we get there, and he gives us the keys to the room. We go to the room with a security guard in tow. We open the door, and somebody goes, what are you doing? There was somebody in the room. He gave us a room with somebody. So we had to go back to the front desk, and we apologized profusely. I have to go back to the front desk and get a different room. So that's our little story about taking the French Connection. And in order to get out of Guadeloupe, we had to buy an American Airlines ticket to get to San Juan. This is an American who was flying the ATRs all over the Caribbean. And we had to do, we looked at all possibilities. And it wasn't the days of, you could go online and book your tickets. You had to get paper tickets, and you had to get them beforehand. And we just didn't think of the backtracking, which is why we never had the tickets, because we always had these backup tickets. And so we had to end up buying, it was like a $500 revenue ticket one way to San Juan. And then from San Juan, we get back to Houston. So we still haven't flown Cayenne to Orleans. Probably something we're going to do at some point. So that's a story about nonstop flights and direct flights. So next time you see somebody say, this is a direct service from Houston to London. Ask them if it's going to make a stop somewhere. And they're going to be like, oh no, it's not going to make any stops. So I'm like, so do you mean nonstop then? They're going to be embarrassed, so don't embarrass them. But that gives you an idea. So that's all I have for this week. I thought I would do that. And I actually have a video on the channel that explains this, but this came up during the week. I think one of the other bloggers did something. So I wanted to say it again, because I still see people say this is a direct flight when they really mean it's a nonstop flight. I think Northern Pacific is a new airline. They're talking about, oh yeah, we have direct service. I'm like, no, you have nonstop service. Stop it. So anyway, what are your thoughts? Leave me a note and let me know. This is Kerwin signing up from What's Happening in Travel with Kushar and Kerwin. Have a great trip.